One of the most powerful ways to win buyer or seller presentations is by having a quality CMA, or comparative market analysis. I create one every time before placing an offer or pricing a listing, and I'm going to show you 4 of the top platforms that you can use to create professional CMAs that give you a competitive edge. I'll be comparing their pros and cons, subscription costs, and how effective they are at estimating a home's value. Plus, I'll be talking about the significant discounts offered exclusively to eXp agents that can save you a ton of money. Without further ado, here are the best platforms for creating CMAs. So before I got my real estate license, I was in real estate appraisal for about 5 years. I estimated the value of over 3,000 homes all throughout Greater Vancouver, and there's a lot of differences between an appraisal and a comparative market analysis. Of course, an appraisal is used for loan approvals, and so the level of detail is a lot higher. You'll likely pay $300+ for one of those reports, and it is a legal document, whereas a CMA is usually complimentary and the level of detail is a bit more general. It's more geared towards pricing and marketing strategy. And as well, you're not only looking at sold listings that are similar to the subject property like you would in an appraisal, you're also looking at active homes, expired listings, terminated listings, because agents typically do homework for you. If a listing has been on the market for too long, that means it's likely priced too high. Or if there's active listings that have been sitting for 30, 60, 90 days, a good strategy might be to price your client's home 5 to 10% below competing listings. What I'm going to do is head over to my MLS. In BC, it's Paragon, and I'm going to use these very granular filters in order to find comparables that are in a very tight range and are very similar to the subject property, and use those listings in the CMA so that we don't have to rely on the automatic import, which a lot of these platforms provide and typically have a very broad range that you have to sift through. So it makes it easier just to go to your MLS, put in the filters, get 3 to 6 properties that you could then put into the CMA and use that as a comparison tool. So first thing, we're going to select the status. I am going to choose closed and pending. In an appraisal, you're only going to look at closed properties, but pending, you've already gone through that conditional period. It's what the market is willing to bear in terms of price. So we're going to include that in our comparable selection. For the region, it's in Greater Vancouver. The area is Vancouver West, and the sub area is the West End. You're going to compare the same type of dwelling, so condo to condo. You're not looking at half duplexes or townhouses, of course. Make sure that the type of dwelling is the same. For the search date, we're going to go back 60 to 90 days. If there aren't that many sales within that time period, you'll want to extend beyond that, but of course you'll have to make some price adjustments. But since a CMA is kind of a general indication of market value, you don't have to get that specific, but that's a good guideline just to stay within 60 to 90 days. So we're going to start looking 60 days back. Since it's a condo, we'll look at only 2 beds, so we'll have a very tight range of only looking at 2 bedrooms. And next, I'm going to choose specific features, and this is one that's often overlooked, is the construction. You're not going to compare a concrete building to a wood frame. There are value differences between those kinds of properties. So since ours is in a concrete building, that's what we're going to choose for the comparables. And for the floor area, our subject is around 960, so we'll start out with 100 square foot difference, so 860 to 1060. The subject building was built in 1990, so let's say a maximum of 2010. so we don't have to make too much of an adjustment for the age. And next is the title to land. This is important because if you're in a community like the West End, there's a lot of different ownership types like leasehold or co-ops, and that's one thing that people look at and question why the price is so low. Let's say for a co-op, they get excited, but that's because the value isn't as high as a freehold strata. So when comparing, of course, you want to make sure that the ownership is the same throughout all your comparables. So we're going to click on freehold strata and save that. So now we're down to about 4 comparables, and we'll see which ones those are. So out of the 4 comparables, we have somewhat of an outlier. It's over $1 million. And if we have a look at the pictures here, we see obviously it's a beautiful view, somewhat unobstructed, and scrolling through the pictures, this property looks like it's had some updates, some flooring installed, granite counter, perhaps some high-end appliances, but generally we can consider this an outlier. And if we're only looking for 3 sales, we'll keep a fairly tight range and select these properties to use as our comparables, and I'll filter that list down. So what I'm going to do is take all of these MLS numbers and I'll be using those in the CMA so that we don't have to rely on the automatic comparable import that a lot of these platforms provide. So the first platform that I'm going to review is Lofty, which was formerly called Chime. You'll pay upwards of $4.49 per month for the subscription, but through EXP you can pay $40 a month at an exclusive discount. You'll have to purchase a website option, which is around $4 a month if you want to get connected to your local MLS. And if you plan on doing that, you're going to have to connect to either an IDX or VOW feed. The IDX will have active listings, whereas the VOW will have a wider range of listings like sold listings, terminated, and expired listings, which is exactly what we want in order to create a CMA. So you're going to have to sign a virtual office website agreement, which takes about 10 days to hear back from your real estate board. So we're looking at Lofty's CMA feature, which is called Lofty Present. And I'm going to create a new report for a buyer presentation. So I'll put the client name in here, and this will come straight from your CRM, and I'll just call this CMA, and I'll import our subject property. One thing I like about Lofty is when you put in an address, if that listing has history on the MLS, it'll automatically import all of the details so you don't have to do repetitive data entry. So here it has pictures from a past listing and all of the additional details already pre-populated. So now that we have our subject property, I'll click on continue. Now what's great is Lofty already highlighted the neighborhood where we want to look for all of the comparables. And they've automatically included all the different status listings like sold, active, and pending, and they give you an option to get very specific about the listings that you want to include with these filters. So it's very similar to the MLS, which is great, but for our purposes we've already done that and we have our MLS numbers that we want to include. So what I'll do is I'm going to remove all of these, and if you click on view selected again, it has this option here to add your own listings that you've selected through your MLS. So I'm going to do that right now. Once I've added the listings, I'm going to click continue. Now we're at the stage where we are going to estimate the property's value, and they have a really great breakdown of the total buying cost. So how much they're going to put for a down payment, how much the appraisal is, the inspection. So it gives a much better idea to your client as to their total costs. And that's something that can be fairly tedious if you're putting in a lot of offers. So it's great that they have this feature. And Lofty gives you the ability to make adjustments for each property. So let's say looking at this unit on Comox, it's on the 2nd floor, where ours is on the 5th floor. So let's say we want to make a floor adjustment. You can make that adjustment and it'll update the price so that it more accurately reflects how close it is to the subject. So once I click continue, it gives you options for how you want to design your CMA, what sections you want to add, your resume, information about your company. Once you've designed your CMA, you can click continue. And then you can hop on Zoom with your client and run through your CMA presentation. And it's actually very comprehensive what Lofty offers, a lot more information about the neighborhood, what is a CMA, and it highlights all of the comparables. So Lofty has this great chart which plots the subject property and the estimated sale price. So it's very accurate, and if you scroll down, it has a nice presentation as to what the approximate market value is and the estimated price range. And another feature that I really like is this last section here, which gives your client a call to action. So if you send them the CMA or if you're presenting it online, it prompts them on an action for what they would like to do next, whether they want to make an offer or learn a bit more, so that you have a bit more of an understanding of where they are at in the buying process, and then you can move forward from that point. kvCORE, which is rebranding to BoldTrail, is offered through eXp Realty, included in the technology fee, which is 139 Canadian or $84 USD every month. It offers a full suite of tools for agents, including your own website, CRM, marketing, prospecting tools, and it really enables you to hit the ground running without having to set anything else up, without additional contracts or expenses. Of course, there's additional features that you can pay for, such as the Property Boost feature, which will market your listing to thousands of people on Facebook, and I found that to be very effective. But this is all part of what you get at eXp, and their CMA product is called Core Present. So we're going to create a new one for a buyer under Win the Offer, and I'll just put in the address of our subject property. So even though there is a listing history, it doesn't automatically import all of the listing details, so you're going to have to do that manually. Once you've put in all the details, click on Comparable Details. And since it didn't import all of the information, you're going to have to select the property type. And instead of targeting a neighborhood, it uses a radius. So right now that radius is too big. We're going to narrow that down to 0.5 kilometers just to see what kind of listings that it automatically generates. Now you see there's a lot of listings that are included outside of that radius, so it's not all that accurate. But again, we're going to add our own comparables. So I'm going to put them in down here where it says add on MLS comparable. So I'll make sure to click on manual so it doesn't import all of those comps that I'll have to filter out later on. And then once I've included that, I'll click on Build CMA. Core Present will have a graph that will plot all the comps on a chart, so it's easy to visualize where the subject property sits in terms of all the other homes that have sold or are for sale. So not too much information here. We're going to click on Create Presentation. And this is where you can customize the PDF or live presentation on the left-hand side. There's a lot of different options here: market analysis, marketing and buyer activity, and what the next steps are. So I'm just going to go ahead and click present and share. Present has some good features. If you see on the right hand side, it gives you the option to add a net sheet, so you can include all the closing costs, including the title insurance, prorated property tax, HOA fees, and that sort of thing. So then you can click on Open Preview, and Core Present will have a PowerPoint style presentation, and you could go through these slides. There's some interactivity there if you want to review specific comparables or see them all on a map, and also look at the trends, features, that sort of thing. So it has a very nice presentation layer, and if you're just looking for a simple CMA with not too much configurability, I think kvCORE's Core Present offers a great option. Autoprop is a platform that is included through your MLS. If you go to the Resources tab, you'll find it in the drop-down under All Realtors Tools. Autoprop has a cool backstory. It was a small startup that was acquired by the Land Title Survey Authority in 2018. And in 2022, they launched a very good comprehensive CMA tool. So since it's owned by Land Titles, it has the most comprehensive data available, such as zoning, community plans. So this is an incredible tool, not just for realtors to put together CMAs, but also builders. And if you're prospecting, this is a great way to look at different land use designations to see whether there's some development potential in certain lots. But this will have every single address available, and it's connected to the MLS, so there's no additional contracts that you need to have in place in order to use it. So I'm going to put in our subject property address, and we'll start the CMA. So right off the bat, we have a very comprehensive overview of the property. You could see all of the legal information, the assessment data, recent MLS history, the school catchment, and we'll click on the option to create a CMA. It has one column for all of the property details, another column for finding listings on the MLS, or the third option, which is putting in your own comps, which is what we're going to do. But it shows the different status listings that you can include in the automatic comparable search. So a lot of great options that this provides, but since we've already done that, we're just going to paste in the 3 comparables. And since we already have our comparable selected, I'm going to make sure that no other listings that we don't want in this CMA are included. Now we're at the listings and pricing page. I kept 3 active listings included so that we can have an idea of the competition that's available, and there's already 3 listings that are in the same building. And when you're doing an appraisal for a lender, typically they want to see 2 recent sales in the subject building, and if you can't find those going back 3 to 6 months, then you have to go out to the street level and then the neighborhood level, and then make adjustments for the comparables if they are too far apart from your subject property. So if I scroll down, it shows the value range, and of course you can customize this based on the adjustments that you make to the comparables. Then it shows the median, average, low and high range, and you want to weight the value to the closest comp. So if all of the features are almost identical, of course you're going to weight it towards that property. So that's really the art form of putting together a valuation on a property. So we're going to click Save and Preview, and It has a very nice presentation. You could click on the different tabs to look at all the comparables, a side-by-side view, the criteria that was used in the comparable search, and of course, agent bio. Then you could share the CMA in a PDF, and it'll generate that so you can send it to your client. So Autoprop gives you different formats that you can share the CMA with your client, whether you want to send them a link or they have an interactive web version, which is my favorite way to walk through a CMA with my clients. And it's very organized into the different sections that you can click the tabs and go through these different listings with your client. So it gives them a good overview of what's happening in the market. And I really like that all of the details are contained within this one page. You're not opening multiple tabs, which makes it kind of confusing to compare the different listings. So it's very user-friendly. This is probably one of the better platforms in terms of detail and customization. And being that it's directly connected to land titles, you get the most up-to-date information from all the different municipalities. This is a very good platform no matter what you're doing in the real estate industry. CloudCMA is one of my favorite CMA platforms. It was created by W&R Studios and was recently acquired by Lone Wolf. It starts at $45 a month, and this is also included in your MLS under resources. So you'll find it in the same drop-down under General, and you'll click on CloudCMA and it'll automatically log you in. Now, in terms of user interface and user experience, this is one of the best platforms out there. I think it's very well designed. Even though it's connected directly to the MLS, you'll see when I put in the property address, it only brings up the street address. So I find that oftentimes if I'm doing a valuation on a condo, I'll have to manually put in the unit number. As it stands now, there is no way to automatically import all the details, even though that address is on the MLS. So I'm going to manually input all the details about this property. And again, it gives you the option to automatically find listings or input ones that you've already pulled from your MLS. So I'm going to put in the comma separated MLS numbers. You can use their quick and dirty feature, but I found that the search is far too broad. So some listings are imported that aren't very comparable to the subject property, and it creates a bit more friction in order to filter those out. So it's always recommended to go to your MLS, find listings on there, because that is going to be the most accurate source and have the most comprehensive filters, so you can get exactly the listings you want that are as close to your subject property as possible. So I'm putting in my MLS numbers and I'm going to click Fetch Listings. So this page is very user-friendly. It has all the listings here, which you can drag and drop to reorder them, or it gives you a lot of different sorting options. And if you expand each listing, you can scroll through the photos to see the different condition, to make notes and adjustments. In an appraisal, you're typically adjusting comps side by side, which is a little bit more intuitive. So to expand each listing, input the adjustments, there's a little bit of friction there, but it's not a big deal. I still think this is one of the best presentations for creating a CMA, and you can set the price that you might want to offer on this property or what you think the property is worth. So I'll click on Customize Report, and this is where you can add or remove sections which end up in the PDF or the live interactive version. I personally like to keep things as simple as possible in order not to overwhelm my clients with the wealth of information. There are plenty of premium options in the left side here that you can add to your CMA, but for me, I just like to have the map of all the listings, the details, the photos. And if you go down to the average price per square foot, you can preview what the PDF is going to look like. And it has this beautiful graph where you can put a trend line. So we're going to click on Edit, Show Subject Property and Chart, and Show Trend Line in Chart, and save that. And then if you preview it again, it'll have somewhat of a regression analysis where you can see where that property sits in relation to the comparables that you've selected. Once you've customized your report with the different design themes, color themes that might match your brand, the different types of layouts, the fonts that you want to use, then you'll click on Publish. When the report is saved, click on View Live, and it puts together this very nice interactive CMA report. And when you're presenting this to your buyer, it's very easy to understand, to go through each individual listing, to add notes and adjustments right on that listing. And if you want to show it on the map, it's easy to see where those comps are in relation to the subject property. And it also pulls in all the active, sold, pending listings around that area. And you can also look at the different stats so that you can come up with a strategy in terms of how you want to position yourself when making an offer. Check out CloudCMA if you haven't already. I guarantee this is going to make your life easier when you are presenting your strategy to your client. It will make you seem a lot more competent and knowledgeable when you are using the best platform that is really available to you for free through your MLS. So I encourage you to use this if you haven't, and if you have any questions about it, don't hesitate to reach out. But out of all the platforms that I reviewed today, I think CloudCMA really knocks it out of the park in terms of user interface, user experience, level of detail, customization, and I highly recommend that you use it.